doing your civic duty. Calling to order first, order of business is the approval of minutes. December 15th volume, 2021. I know that we had sent them back for more edit, basically Dale Teeling's suggestion. But I looked them over once after the second time. Does anyone have any, David?
Page 7, second paragraph, what I read into the record. They transpose work and serve, so that should read, throughout the time I have served in this position, we have worked diligently. I tried to correct it, I sent an email, but it didn't work. Page 7 of the December 15, 2021 meeting minutes. On page 7, on the second paragraph of the bracketed or indented quote, the first sentence of the second paragraph should read, throughout the time I have served on this commission, we have worked diligently, etc.
Anything else, David?
No, thank you.
Does anyone else have any corrections or additions to add to the minutes? And if not, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
We've got a first. Do we have a second? Second. Okay. All approve, please say aye and raise your hands. Okay. I think we've got the first item on the agenda out of the way. The second item on the agenda is the approval of the March 2nd, 2022 minutes. Again, are there any additions or corrections to that? People, eagle eyes noticed?
I do.
Again, David?
Eagle eye.
Okay, eagle eye.
On page 7, again, in the second paragraph, where it begins with Mr. McCormick asks, etc. The third sentence says, he apologized, but said that from a writing point of view, that was stupid. I think what he did, I did not apologize for anything. So what I think I said was, the colloquialism, I am sorry, but, which is like, saying, with all due respect, but. So I think just for the purposes of the gist of the sentence, I would just delete the word, he apologized, but said, and just start it with, he said that from a writing point of view, that was stupid.
Okay, so we delete apologize, comma, and but. So
Delete, yes.
So he said that from a writing point of view, that was in
And
quotes
delete
stupid.
but, and it just said, he said.
Okay, any other?
Yeah, I got one more.
Okay.
Very rarely.
If you're going to be witty, Robert, turn your mic on.
Page 12, this is for clarification. It is the 4th paragraph. Mr. McCormick said that if they wanted people to understand how terrible slavery was, then it should read, should want people to understand, as opposed that they wanted people to understand, is they should want people to understand.
Got it.
And then finally, and I will defer to whether y'all want to include this or not, on the last page, page 15, would it be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, line 8 paragraph. Mr. McCormick said that otherwise they would be getting into newspeak. I don't know whether or not, for clarification purposes, so that people will understand what that is, put in the word Orwellian, newspeak. I don't care whether it goes in either way, but that would only, I don't know, since we debated about the people's understanding of words last time, I don't know what they would understand where newspeak came from.
So we could put Orwellian in brackets.
Orwell, yeah, you could do.
Orwellian newspeak.
Yeah. Orwellian.
All right, we'll really confuse them with that reference. So anything else?
No, that's all, thank you.
Anybody else, additions or corrections? Can I have a motion
I so move.
to accept the minutes? Is there a second?
Second.
and call the question. Everyone in favor, say aye or raise their hand, or both. Aye. Okay, so the minutes are approved, and I do have to go on the record as saying the minutes are just incredible. There has really been a change here. Sorry, Robert, I know you're terrified of change, but the minutes are just astonishingly good. Old business, the Judge Fields plaque. I think everyone's got the text for it. I'll just say anecdotally, I was called earlier in the day to see if we wanted to cancel this meeting on the possibility of bad weather. And I just said, no, the Judge Fields plaque is too important, so we have to be here for that. Right. So everyone got the rewritten text. Are there any additions or changes for that? And we did confirm the birth date, Councilman, is that right? Nick could not find the birth date in the records, but you said you did confirm the birth date with the family?
So I conferred with Judge Jefferson, who clerked for Judge Fields and then took his seat, and they're together all the time, apparently, communicating with one another, and she confirmed this was his birth date. And that was the best we were able to do, and I did see the emails with Nick, unable to go through the other records as to what is recorded for his birthday. So this is about as good as it's going to get, if not better. And I did try to retool this with the recommendations and comments that this commission had. So I hope I captured what you were looking for. And I think it's a lot better. I really do appreciate y'all's input on this.
Anyone who is a member of the Charleston County Bar Association, if they can answer the question, is "the" capitalized? It is in this plaque. I'll let your nimble fingers.
Because there's a...
Sorry, it's the second paragraph.
Yeah,
it's the third line in the second paragraph. In 2013, the Charleston County Bar Association honored Judge Fields. I mean, when you put something in bronze, you want to make sure you got it right the first time.
Well, let's Google Charleston County Bar Association and see what the website says.
Let's see who's fastest.
Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't think it would be. I don't think so. What do you think?
In 1699, the first incarnation of the Charleston County Bar Association emerged.
And is that not capitalized? So I would assume that that's lowercase then. And if anyone has any other, and if you want more time to read it again one more time, please do. I do not think, I'll ask you all too, your grammarians, if we, again, second paragraph, next to the last line, he was honored with the prestigious James Lewis Pettigrew Award. Do we need a comma after "in recognition of his contributions to the legal profession in his community"? Any major thoughts?
I don't know these days. I mean, I get autocorrect on my emails all the time telling me to put a comma after something. I don't think
Right.
it needs to
Well,
be.
okay, well,
Yeah, and I did not get a correction on that part, so I did not.
okay.
So that's why I left
okay,
it.
so I think we were suggesting that, that the Charleston County Bar Association, the should be lowercase. Any other additions or corrections that people see? We can let the comma slide.
Okay.
Dale Teeling and I put our heads together and we realized we had the same 12th grade English teacher that ground us in grammar. Angela? If you turn your microphone on. It's a green light. Yep.
So just for consistency's sake, in the last sentence of the third paragraph, you have a comma after in 1952. So should there be a comma after in 2013 in the middle paragraph? Either, I mean, we should do it one way or the other.
Does anyone have any change? We can flip a coin. Oh, but does anyone have any strong feelings? I'm sorry, David, can you turn on your light?
Aren't you supposed to put a date after, I mean, a comma after the date anyway?
Normally.
Yep. So we're also now suggesting to put a comma in, and again, the same sentence, third line in paragraph 2 in 2013, comma, lowercase THE, Charleston County Bar Association. Any other additions, corrections? If not, can we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we got a second. And so then everyone in favor of accepting this as how it's been slightly amended, please say aye or raise their hands. Great, we have it. Thank you all. And I hope this gets done in a speedy way and Judge Fields gets a chance to see it and not correct our grammar. So the next item on the agenda, I assume, are the slave mark things. Excuse me, I've lost my agenda in my many pieces of paper, but I'm assuming that's next up. Yep. So do you want to take the south one or the north one first? Shall we take the south one first? Side one. Any thoughts, changes, additions? And I think y'all might have seen some of the explanations that came along with Edwin Breeden's email from the South Carolina Department of Archives and History. And if not, I'll quickly abridge it in saying that we had gotten an issue last time about the dead house, and he did explain that the only reference to dead house was a 20th century mention of it with an interview with somebody, so it's not contemporary. So that's why they tried to reword it the way that they did, to acknowledge that it was said one way, but to try to deal with our opposition to not mentioning it, but putting it in a way that they could say that it had once been called that, but not necessarily at the contemporary time. So I'll read it one more time again. Any thoughts on side one? If not?
Be adopted.
Pardon?
Move it be adopted.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. Okay, everyone in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Okay, second side of this one. Any additions, corrections? And if you need more time, please let me know.
Well, Ed does a good job, and much.
I'll vouch for Bancroft, slave trading in the old South.
It's,
When I was coming along, that book was regarded as the leading authority.
And he was the first one to write about it.
Graduate of UVA. So if he said it, somebody told him he thought was reliable, so, I mean, you know.
So if there are no comments, and I don't mean to rush people, but if there are no additions or corrections, can we have a motion to approve it as presented?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Okay, everyone in favor? Aye. We've
And I have one-
done that one.
Now that it's approved, I have one question, however.
Sure. We have another one to do too, but
It
sure.
just kind of transcends. I was a little, I mean, I was fine with going along with the way it was. I was a little concerned about the fact that we were relying on one source of one recollection of something, where actually what he said is that early research showed there was no reference to it, and that why he chose Sick House was because there were contemporary dwellings like that in other slave complexes. So I'm just, I'm fine with what we did, but I will just say, I think for the future, we have to be very careful. We always have been very careful about making sure that we really do feel comfortable with factual representations as opposed to taking something from a later period and transposing it backward. I recall when we were trying to come up with good language for the Calhoun statute, when we were asked to do the, I guess, trying to put it in context, I remember, I think you brought it up, they were using kind of revolutionary language from the 20th century and transposing it back, and we all agreed that use of that was improper because that was not contemporary. And so I think in some ways we've been lately getting a little bit into modern terminology transposed backward onto language that was not being used at the time that we're representing the particular building or person or whatever. And so I just raised that to say, I think we need to be careful about language. We always have been, and I just hope we will continue to be.
Right. I mean, I think the point is well taken. I do think, that we had not had that term dead house until we were informed that in the phone conversation. And if memory serves, I think the one reference we do have, David, is almost a little bit of both, because as I remember reading Edwin's emails, Edwin Breeden, that the one person who called it a dead house, it was a WPA slave interview. So it was someone who had been alive at the time who subsequently called it a dead house. So it's not like a 20th century person that would have had no memory of it. So, but I think your point is well taken, but I think on this particular issue, I think that's on, and I agree totally with the professionalism of the state archives. And I think that's why, one reason they allowed that in there, because the one person who did say it said it after the fact, but was a contemporaneous witness. Okay, so the north end of the slave trading complex, side one.
Oh, we already did that one. No, we did that.
No, we did the south, I think, first.
I thought I moved twice to, okay.
No, yeah, we did twice. We did back and front of the south side.
I'm sorry.
So now we do back and front of the north side. Any thoughts on side one? I'll let people read, but if someone wants to make a motion, please do. Hearing no additions, corrections, does everyone have time to go through it? Someone want to make a motion to accept it as presented?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? We are just zipping right along, okay. So the final side. Okay, let's try for a fourth. Anyone want to make a motion to accept this as presented? I so move. Thanks, Peg. Second?
Second.
Everyone in favor? Okay. We're compensating for the last time where it took a long time to get to this spot. So the next thing that we have is the Charleston Workhouse, and I'm not sure, do you want to present, Kaylin, or do you want me to do a brief history? So what we had approved the language, so I think sent to you was the language that we had approved. Subsequent to that, a scholarly book came to light, and I will say that I precipitated that, about the workhouse, where it specifically talks about the rebellion that happened in the workhouse, published by Cambridge University Press. This information had always been slightly known, but finally a volume came out specifically on that. And again, I'll take all credit or blame. In my review of the book, I suggested that maybe since the city was going to put up a monument to the workhouse, that it could be done at the anniversary possibly of this rebellion, or acknowledge that. So then at the mayor's suggestion, it was asked if we would go back to that and insert language to talk about maybe some of the enslaved people in the building, not just the, we talked about the architectural thing of it, we talked about the history of it, the placement of it, but we didn't actually talk about any of the people in it. And since now this is a well-documented event there. So basically there's a very brief language. There's slight editing to just some of the wording as to the positioning of the workhouses where it was. And there is, some of the few words were changed, but the real change is, as you can see in the Charleston Workhouse in the illustrated edition, we've added the word, the sentence, in July 1849, enslaved Nicholas Kelly led a rebellion that enabled the escape of 36 others. All, however, were recaptured, and Kelly and 2 others were hanged. That's the substantive change that we've added to the text. The only other changes in there are basically reducing some of the size of the sentences, basically just to incorporate that information. So only a few words have been deleted, no sentence has been deleted, no sense has been deleted, but that sentence has been added. So the one that we want to approve is the one that looks like this. So if people want to spend time looking, at the illustrated one, and I'm assuming, am I right, that that's going to be one of those kind of, for lack of a better term, tabletop sort of storyboard.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
It is the very first sentence, I guess, of the last paragraph. At the workhouse, city staff charge owners for incarcerating enslaved people and those corrected by whipping. It just seems kind of an awkward sentence. And I've read it a couple of times, and I'm not sure what we're trying to convey with that phrase.
So, one of the requests that we had initially was that we would try to use, as David said, as much contemporary language as we could. And so then corrected by whipping is a contemporary from the from the time period, basically it's from the statutes. As I remember, this was lifted actually from the statutes. So I think the sense of this sentence is, and we did talk a little bit about the history of this. So if you were an enslaved person on the streets, you could be incarcerated there, that's one thing, and you could be whipped. They were two different categories, that the city would charge the owner of the enslaved person, we found him on the street, we brought him in here, we kept him here, him or her here, and we're charging you so much per day for their room and board. Or we're actually charging you for whipping this person, and the term used in the statute is corrected by whipping.
And that I understand. And I read those when we were going over the slave apology several years ago. But the wording that says, and those corrected by whipping, at the workhouse, city staff charge owners, and if you take out for incarcerating enslaved people, and it said, at the workhouse, city staff charge owners for those corrected by whipping. I don't know if you follow what I'm trying to say. I understand the term corrected by whipping. It just sort of like leaves it kind of hanging as to what message we're trying to convey. I mean, I understand what the city did and what the city charged for, and that in the term corrected by whipping, it just,
If you inserted one word, it might clear it out.
which is,
Insert a word and, or insert for those.
I mean, sorry, what did you say? Or would, and Peg, if you turn your green light on. Right.
Excuse me,
So-
I was just saying we could insert the word for in front of those corrected by whipping, and then you've covered what you're trying to convey, I think.
I think, yes.
Would that make sense by just the insertion of FOR?
I would make another suggestion, so I would just flip it around and do perhaps, at the workhouse, owners were charged by city staff for incarcerating enslaved people and those corrected by whipping.
I mean, that is the passive voice, which we're always
That is
told.
the passive
is,
voice,
you
I
know.
agree, but I agree with Peter that it seems a little awkward the way it is now.
Say that, Angela, one more time.
So it would go, at the workhouse, owners were charged by city staff for incarcerating enslaved people and those corrected by whipping. I know that's not correct, Harlan. It's a little more cumbersome, but I do agree with you that it seems odd.
It sounds, and your suggestion was fine, too.
Well, it was simple.
It was simple, and that's
Not
what-
great, but simple. So what do you want to do?
So what you're saying, and I've tried to write it down, although this is being recorded. Owners were charged, and can we say by the city instead of city staff?
That's totally up to the writers, I think, yeah.
I think that would allow us, if we're going to insert another for, I think if we get rid of staff, So owners were charged by the city for incarcerating enslaved people and for those corrected by whipping. Councilman, will that work?
Yes, it's fine, it's good to me.
And I'm thinking that that will not change the number of characters too much, because we're getting rid of some letters and adding some letters. Or any other thoughts? And again, give you time to read. And do please you squint and read the captions. David.
But it goes back to something that we talked about earlier, which is the use of certain language and the essential refusal to use certain language. I saw a really good article, Robert Baer, everybody knows Robert, who I think everybody would agree is a really good writer. He wrote a very good article about the new book about Denmark Vesey. It appeared in the Sunday paper a couple of weeks ago. And there were 6 references in the article to either slaves or enslaved or whatever. And he did that, I know, to modulate it, so he didn't repeat the same word every time. And yet we've now gotten ourselves into the habit, at least recently, of only repeating the same words. To me, his approach, which is what I've always advocated, is just to modulate it to make it read better and make it sound better. And so I'll just give you an example in this first paragraph where it says, captured runaway enslaved people. Well, you can say in 2 words, 1 word. We used to always talk about economy of language. all I'm just saying, you know, it can stay the way it is, but I just raise that as an example of what we're doing. And we're doing it for a reason that has nothing to do with the real history and the real way you really write. So, and Robert does get it. And Robert doesn't keep it so that you read the same thing over and over. You use synonyms, you use interchangeable language.
Right, I do think we went out of our ways to not repeat things in the same place, you know, in the same sentence. And I will just say for the record, the last thing that we approved does say slave.
Exactly, that
and
was my
not
point.
enslaved.
And that's what they said from
Right.
archives. But for one, quite frankly, they have to use economy of language.
Right,
I had a long talk with Eric Emerson about it, and he said, we can't put in 3 words when 2 will do, or 5 words when 3 will do.
Right.
It just won't fit on, the stuff won't fit on the plaques.
but again, for the record, and I'm not necessarily saying this is my position, but I will say that for the record, there is an incredible amount of pushback against using language that has historically been used as basically insensitive, and, you know, reducing a person to a status, you know, and not an adjective. So making someone a slave instead of an enslaved person. That is the argument that is often raised. You know, it's almost similar to, we didn't used to capitalize the word black. You know, but now we do capitalize the word black. And I think, and again, that is the argument that is often stated for the use of the word enslaved.
Well, I understand the
Right.
argument. I'm just saying, I think we also are concerned about historical language and also good writing. That's all I was saying.
Right, but I do think we're trying to use historical language by putting it in quotes, you know, and that kind of thing. But if you wanted to make a specific suggestion,
No,
feel
I'm
free
not.
to.
I'm just raising these issues so that when we deal with a lot of this stuff in the future, we're a little more sensitive to that as well.
Right, and again, you know, I think we touched on that last time when that prompted your comment about Newspeak, you know, are we really going to define what language we use? And I just think, you know, I have faith in this commission. One, we have a rigorous loyalty to facts, but we're all really good at language as well, too, and trying to make sure that there's no redundancy and that the same phrase is not repeated in the same sentence at least. But again, I'll give you all time to read more if people need. So is that the only sentence that people want to change? But again, give people more time. And again, it is stuff that we had already approved. And can y'all read the captions? So we have amended the first sentence of the final paragraph. Owners were charged by the city for incarcerating enslaved people and for others, and for those corrected by whipping, in quotation marks. Any other suggested changes or emendations? And do let me know if you need more time. I'm just doing visual cues. I'm just looking at people. If they're still reading, I'm not going to say anything. Okay, no one's reading. Any other additions, corrections? Failing that? Can we have a motion to accept it as amended? A second? Any more discussion? Okay, let's call it. Everyone in favor, please say aye. And it's unanimous. That's wonderful. Any other thing before this commission, before we adjourn?
I think you have done a masterful job of chairing some very contentious meetings, and I congratulate you.
Well, gosh, with that praise, thanks. This was not contentious, so, but anyway, so, okay. Put your green light on if it's witty. Yes,
Is this your first meeting?
welcome, welcome.
And I hope to be very active with you all, and I know you'll do a wonderful job, and there are contentious meetings, which is nothing new. I'm listening against it.
Your meeting is how town whole.
And the only thing that I have for information, whether it's going to involve this committee or not, the commission or not, I'm not sure, that you might have read in the paper recently, about Beaufort being the site of the Reconstruction history. The mayor has suggested that a number of sites, maybe in the city of Charleston, be nominated for that. But in my comment to the mayor was, we've already actually approved many a plaque that already has that kind of thing. We had approved the thing for, on Queen Street, sorry, his name escapes me now, although I emailed him, the first African-American to hold statewide office, Jonathan Jasper Wright. We've already approved that plaque on Queen Street, that already exists. There's a Moja plaque on Pitt Street that already exists on, for Alonzo Rancier. So I think at some point, just again for information, I think at the last meeting, right, the 1868, right, and that was the first one, right. We approved language for that one as well, too, just down the street. You're absolutely right, David. So I do think, that maybe Charleston's Reconstruction history will be acknowledged as well, too. But obviously, if new information or new plaques come up along that, it'll come before us. And again, I'm just passing that along for information. Similarly, at the last meeting, we had talked about the, anniversary of the American Revolution, and just an FYI, there might be things coming your way. So not to make a short meeting longer, thank you all for your service, and let's adjourn this meeting. And thank you, city staff.